As I talked a lot about in my other videos about Senshi, Thistle, Marcel, and Izutsumi, there are a lot of different themes found in Dungeon Meshi that encapsulate a bunch of different life experiences and perspectives. But I think it's about time we talked about one of the major perspectives in the show, Laios and Falin Totem. While Lios is the main character of the series, Falin is the main goal of the series. Though that might sound like one character has more weight for the story than the other, they both share a unique place in the story by being driving forces that gather all the characters around them. Without either of them, the story loses a lot of the foundation it needs for the characters and the audience to experience and understand the world we're exploring in Dungeon Meshi. Without Lios, we lose the ability to understand monster kind, dungeon life, the driving force that pushes people deeper into the dungeon, and the deeper theme of not feeling like you belong with anybody or anywhere. Without Falin, we lose the reason to go deeper into the dungeon, the horrific consequences of adventuring and of choices made that are out of our control. We lose the organic storytelling of past events, emotional moments shared that touched multiple characters, and the heart-wrenching trials people are willing to go through for love. To really get the full picture of what I'm feeling for these two, we should start at the beginning for them. Laios and Falin Totem were two siblings who grew up in the countryside together. They loved being around each other, but eventually Lios felt like he needed to leave the village and decided to join the army. Falin was left with pretty much nothing and soon left to join the Mage Academy where she would meet Marcel. Lios abandoned the army shortly after, not feeling like he was able to fit in, and left on a caravan heading out of town. Now here's where I'm going to put some speculation that isn't 100% confirmed, but feels like it is to me. Lios says he dropped by Falin's Mage Academy to see her, and then she decided to just follow him from there on. I don't think that's entirely the truth. He later talks about how he thought of her eating alone while he was away, how it hurt to think about how lonely she was until she met Marcel, and how he doesn't want that to happen again. Lios probably felt that way all along, especially after leaving the army, and wanted to come find her because she was the only one who would miss him. She's the only one in his life that never judged him or ostracized him. He loved his sister and she loved him, so he wanted to be with her again. Shortly after that, they traveled to the island where the dungeon is located and worked together on odd jobs before forming a party of their own. Eventually, they formed the party we knew at the start with Shuro and Namori, and then after the Red Dragon, we started the series with our new party of Lios, Marcel, Chilchuk, and Senshi going to save Falin from being, well, digested. The reason why I believe Laios and Falin are so important to the series is because they represent the outsiders of the world. Now, that's not to say they face the same hate, scrutiny, or isolation that other people like Izutsumi or the orcs go through, but they do deal with those issues regularly as well. They show how loneliness can affect your perception of people, the world, and what you hold dear. From the very brief view of Laios and Falin's parents we had in the Nightmare episode, Lios viewed them as very judgmental and distant of Laios' choices. They also seemed very dismissive of what would happen to Falin and whatever she chose to do. I wouldn't be surprised if this was another basis on which Lios and Falin decided to go off together to the dungeon instead of just sticking at the Mage Academy or staying in the army. Freedom to explore, meet monsters and people, make money, and study the dungeon's various ecosystems. They both understood each other enough to feel like their place was by each other's sides. For Lios, he's a monster lover. He's always loved monsters and thinking about them and understanding them. A major reason why his party has survived this long is because of that extensive knowledge and love of monsters. But because of his affinity towards monsters, other people find him weird or uncomfortable to be around. He spent a large amount of his youth and now adult life feeling like he never belonged anywhere with anyone because it's just who he is and other people didn't get him. Even in some flashbacks with Shuro, we see how excited he is to finally meet someone outside of his sister that he feels he can connect to. Obviously, Shuro's mannerisms and way of conveying his thoughts are much more subtle than Lios could probably understand. Shuro was annoyed by Lios. He hated how forthright he was and how earnest he was about asking questions and probing into every aspect of his life. It probably felt like a steamroller who would never let up on you, and it was worse because he knew Lios wasn't trying to be rude or mean, he just didn't understand what he was feeling. This same kind of interaction could be happening with Kabru, who does seem very interested in Lios as a person because of his past exploits, even if He believes Lios was corrupt or evil in some way. Lios views Kabru as a fellow monster lover and seems excited to just meet someone who's interested in the same things as him, probably wanting to make a new friend. But I think one of the cooler aspects of this side of Lios is it also shows that he isn't unwilling to listen to others. Sure, he gets too hyped up in his own special interest about monsters and can steamroll conversations, but once someone starts laying it down on him like Shuro does, he listens and even accepts it. They just need to be honest and tell him what's wrong or what he needs to change and why for him to fully understand what's going through somebody's mind. I believe Lios just isn't good with people and never has been. Monsters are easier for him to understand and deal with because there's more information out there, and for the most part, that information doesn't change. Monsters are instinctual and have habits and routines that they stick to that allows them to serve some biological purpose like eating, reproducing, or whatever else. People are more complex, act in different ways that are hard to describe or understand for people who just can't read those kind of cues. I remember seeing something that said Lios was not written to be autistic or autistic coded, but a lot of people, me included, see a lot of similarities in his actions and way of thinking that do feel very relatable. The thing about Lios, though, is that his love of monsters keeps him always at arm's length from everybody else except maybe Senshi. He's the outsider looking in, and one of the main reasons is because they find him weird for loving monsters and monster food so much. Ironically, though, it's that love of monsters that keeps everyone safe and prepared for things in the dungeon. Without his knowledge of the weak spot on the Red Dragon, for example, the party would be dead. As the series went on, he even shows that he's not completely enamored or biased by his love of monsters. He knows they are dangerous and had to be respected for their capacity to kill or act on their natural instincts. Prime example is the Kelpie that almost took Senshi because he believed it was tamed to him. Lios is important to the story because his unique love and personality, even though it has been mocked and belittled over and over again by multiple characters, keeps the party safe. He isn't Shuro, who can cut a giant snakehead off with one swing, or a thistle that can summon blood monsters. He's just a guy who loves monsters and his sister and is willing to do anything to make sure she's okay. Without him, this adventure and all these experiences never would have happened. Senshi would have stayed in the dungeon alone. Marcel would have been stuck in academia hell researching taboo material. Izutsumi would have never escaped from Shuro's party and found a way to possibly save herself. Lios is the foundation of the group who they can look to for guidance, reliability, and leadership. Falin, on the other hand, is a perfect character to use as the goal for the series. A character that has been nothing but kind, compassionate, and empathetic to everyone else, including monsters. When we first lose her in episode 1, it's hard to feel a strong connection to her, but as the series progresses, we see talks and flashbacks that really flesh out who she was as a character and what she means to people. Obviously, Lios is her brother, and so he wants to save her immediately, but then we have Marcel. Marcel being the only other person in the party who seems personally devastated by losing Falin. We see their past in the academy, how they bonded and spent their days together. How Marcel chased after Falin when she left with Lios and eventually joined their dungeon party. We even see how some of the other characters react to Falin's death in Shuro and Namari. Shuro being someone who, in my opinion, only likes the outward presenting version of Falin and not the real person Falin. He obviously was just infatuated with her and proposed without thinking, but he had his own version of grief too. He left Lios' group to form his own to get back down to the Red Dragon and save Falin, ignoring everything else like sleeping or eating. Meanwhile, Namari was a little bit more cold. Though I think she felt concerned and cared about the lives of each of her former party members, I think she ultimately decided to leave because she didn't want to die again for possibly nothing. This led to some very tense moments with Marcel, but Lios at least seemed to understand enough to not hold it against her. But that's not the end of it, at least. Once they return near the surface, we start seeing that Namari does worry about the party and what became of Falin. We see her maybe even showing regret for leaving, but is honoring the choice she already made by not interfering with them any further. She does, however, go out to the dungeon's corpse handler to see if Falin was there, so obviously she cares. Falin has the inexplicable way of attracting people to her. She has this natural charisma that people love, and they appreciate the way she acts and talks and cares for others. It's almost the exact opposite of how people treat Lios. But even though so many people love her or exclude Lios, there's one thing about her that's always true. She loves her brother and thinks he's the best. She's his #1 fan no matter what. They share their interests together, they always come back to each other, and they risk everything for each other. It makes perfect sense to me that Falin would sacrifice herself to save Lios from the dragon, and that Lios in return would risk everything to go save her. Now, how they're going to meet again in Season 2 is still a mystery to me. I know the main goal is saving Falin and finding a method to return her to normal, or at least as close to normal as possible after fusing with the dragon. In a straight fight, they're probably gonna die because Falin is just that much stronger now that she has fused with the dragon. She has magic, strength, durability, and a crazy-ass mage that is unwilling to let her die again. Thistle's gonna be a major factor in how they're gonna deal with her. I have no doubt that they probably will find a way to beat Thistle, or at the very least get Falin away from Thistle so that they could do their whatever method of returning her to normal. I think Lios is going to be the reason they either beat Thistle or save Falin. He's been the rock that saves the party through his unorthodox way of fighting by using the nature of monsters against them. Maybe he could trick the dragon part of Falin to attack or hurt Thistle and then use that as an opportunity to finish him off. Maybe he'll use the winged lion and his party to hold off Thistle or Falin to deal with the other. It's a scary prospect to think that they could just straight up fail and lose Falin forever. Maybe even party wipe and die for good. Laios and Falin elevates Dungeon Meshi beyond just another dungeon crawling adventure, giving it heart and emotional depth. Through their bonds, the series becomes more than just a tale of survival. It becomes a story of love, sacrifice, and the enduring impact of those who fight for each other. Laios and Falin aren't just important to the plot, they are its very core, making every battle, meal, and moment of camaraderie all that more meaningful. If you made it this far, I wanted to say thank you for watching. Laios and Falin are very unique but special characters to me because of how different they are compared to a lot of the main characters. They aren't exceptional in a lot of standard anime protagonist ways, but they show so much heart, knowledge, and love for what they hold close, especially each other. They made watching Dungeon Meshi very special to me, and I loved being able to talk about them a little bit more. I wanted to thank you again for watching. I wanted to also remind you to like, comment, and subscribe, and to also hit that bell icon. And yeah, let me know if you guys have anything that you want me to cover, like another character, another series. I'm kind of finding my groove in these little video essays, and I like it. All right, I'll see you guys in the next one, and take care.